Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today I wanted to go through an update on the 1600 gallon system so everyone could see what I've been up to. And I also want to start talking a little bit more about that massive protein skimmer that I've been building. Go ahead, sit back and relax and enjoy the update of the system here. The first topic I wanted to cover today is I want to talk a little bit about aquascaping for the 720 gallon tank. I know everyone saw that big giant rock pile I had sitting here, and you know what? I decided that was just way too much rock, so I decided I'm going with minimalist aquascaping. I'm just going to use the rubble out of the reef cleaners rock boxes. I think I can make some cool little tiny islands, and I also have a small pile of sand there, and that's going to be it. That's what I'm doing here in the 720 gallon tank. Of course, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. 720 gallon aquascapes no longer on the floor because it's actually in the tank, and the 720 gallon tank is getting ready to get filled up. Matter of fact, by the time you see this video, there might even be water in this tank. 480 gallon tank is still doing great. We've had no leaks to speak of yet, nothing that I could find anyways. The water's still cloudy, but I have no filtration on it, and it's just RO water circulating around in here right now, along with whatever organics have breaking off the rock. The cleanliness has gotten, I think, a little bit better, but I'm really not that concerned about it right now. When I fill the 720 gallon tank up, it's going to go through another whole round of cloudiness. But once we've proven out that everything's holding water, working as it's supposed to, then we can move on to the conversation of adding salt into this system. I didn't add salt to this 1600 gallon system simply because I did not want to purchase that quantity of salt, mix it into the water, fill the tanks up, and then find out that I have a leak or a problem or something that's going to require me to throw that water away. It just wasn't cost effective to do that. And I don't know, I've had several people say, why did you even bother with reverse osmosis water? You could have just used tap water. To be honest, I probably could get away with that and be just fine, but I'd rather not make things more difficult for me by pumping in more stuff that's in the water. So I've been letting the RO unit go, and I haven't changed out the DI resin. I think the TDS on it's up to about 9 or so. I'll probably change out that cartridge once the 720's filled. I'll let a little bit get by. I want to also exercise my reverse osmosis system and make sure it's also doing well. But that also leads back into, well, what else is there to do? The biggest project is the giant protein skimmer. Now, I've had this thing machined up for over a year, and I got the base of it machined out. I made the giant collection cup, I made a top for it, I made the PVC rings here, but I really stopped doing everything with it. Let me explain a little bit as to why I did that. I needed to get the footprint of my skimmer, basically its skeleton, built. And at the time, when I got all the pieces in, which by the way, I ordered this, and this is PVC, not acrylic, from flexpvc.com, because they sell this as UV PVC, and they sell it by the foot. So I was able to order the sizes I wanted and get them in, which is significantly cheaper than trying to buy a 10-foot length of this stuff, because even though it's PVC, it's still rather expensive, but not nearly as much as acrylic. I really needed to get that skimmer body in and get some parts machined on it so that I could dry fit everything, which allowed me to kind of finish off all the plumbing and the planning and the design part of the filtration room. And now that I've gotten a lot further along, it's time to get this bad boy done. Now this isn't glued together. I still have to glue the ring here onto the neck of the skimmer, which goes all the way up. It's just a couple inches short of the top of the collection cup. And I also have to glue the outer cup into this ring. I have to drill air holes in here, and I'm probably going to end up putting some rings on this as well so that the foam can kind of get pushed up and pushed down into the cup so it doesn't try to come out the air holes that'll eventually be on top. One further thing I want to do is I want to drill a hole in the bottom of this, so if I want to put an external collection cup on, I can also do that, because as you can imagine, a 1600 gallon system, it's going to produce a lot of skimmate, and it's going to be really dirty, and I'd just like to have some kind of collection system eventually for it, if need be. But we'll see. You could probably hold a gallon or two of protein skimmer stuff in here, which sounds good, doesn't it? Sure, my wife's gonna hate me when I empty this thing eventually, because I don't think there's any way to avoid not stinking up the basement or the house. Sorry, honey, in advance. Kind of a caveat we didn't talk about with this. Let's go back into the fish room. I got a couple other things with the protein skimmer going on, so let's go back there and take a look. Here it is. The base of the protein skimmer is pretty much done. Now, for everybody that isn't aware, I've talked about this skimmer very little. I've been getting a ton of questions asking about this protein skimmer, so I wanted to kind of address a bunch of them right now. To build this protein skimmer, I really had a lot of time I took to try and think about what I could use to build this protein skimmer. Ultimately, I decided one of the best things I could find was an HDPE induction tank. Now, normally induction tanks have the cone bottom facing down, which is exactly what this is. But in order to write it, I went ahead, flipped this tank over and said, I need to have a base for it. So I used the same PVC sheeting that I've used for my overflows, some of my tops, and even all the parts on the skimmer here, because one, it's easy to machine. It can be glued with PVC solvent glue. The only drawback to it is it's buoyant. But the HDPE tank's buoyant too. We're going to address that in a little later video on this protein skimmer. With the HDPE tank, there's a 16-inch access port on the bottom of it, or I should say the top of it, depending on how you look at it. I couldn't just have this stand up straight, it would wobble over. So I cut out this PVC base, I put some long baffles, just a few inches tall, and I routed out a groove and glued those into this base as well. I then cut the cone off so that I could accommodate my PVC here. When I cut the top of the cone off, one of the things I had to do was make sure that the cone kind of met at a point where it was going to meet the neck properly. Now, unfortunately, I did this over a year ago and I wasn't filming videos, but I got 8-inch diameter PVC and I needed to make sure that it accommodated it. One of the most difficult things, though, is that HDPE plastic does not bond to virtually anything. It's roto-molded plastic, basically plastic pellets that they heat up and melt together into forming shapes. That's what my two big sump tanks are, and that's what this tank's made out of. Like I said, the only drawback to it is it's buoyant, so it does have a little bit of flotation to it. In order to make a joining ring for the protein skimmer neck, I actually machined out rings for the PVC to go in, and there's 3 of these rings. Let me zoom into them for you. Now, I zoomed in a little closer here, hopefully it stays focused. But essentially what I had to do, since this is 1/2-inch thick material, I made a ring that goes inside, and I beveled it out and made it so that it could be received by another piece of PVC on top, so the two joined together like a little grooved sandwich. And then I cut one more ring on top and glued that in. That allows me to put the cup on. That's not quite perfect on here. I gotta probably consider, once I get it going, I might put like a little ring of silicone around it, or I might see if I can find a really large diameter gasket and just put that in there. Just a little something to kind of push it together. Once this is complete, this whole part here is essentially done. What I don't have done though is I don't have holes cut in the bottom of this tank. I have to have an entrance hole for the water to come in, which this is going to be a gravity fed skimmer. So the overflow pipe, there's going to be a single 2-inch line that feeds this skimmer and a single 2-inch output line. Then the big Jabo pump 15,000 that I got is going to be used to drive the air injection. I also have this massive bubble chamber, which I showed off in one or two of the videos, and And actually, I have my bubble chamber right here. I went ahead and put it together. Scoot it a little bit so everybody can see it. And I got the pump on the other side here. It's a little awkward working back here with this protein skimmer taking up half of my little walking space. But let me zoom into this here. We'll talk about it just a little bit. Drilled a hole in the side of my bubble chamber, glued on the bottom plate, and then I went ahead and glued in the little stanchion that holds the bubble plate. It's just got a bulkhead on it that screws down and allows me to put that plate on and take it off if I want. I then drilled for an 1.5-inch bulkhead to go through the side. Now this bulkhead's just got a 2-inch female adapter on it, which normally would do, but because there's no kind of stress or anything on this bulkhead, it's just meant for water flow, and even if it leaks, it's not a big deal. I went ahead and did that for kind of ease and convenience. But then became the problem of how do I get the Jabo pump working? This is the stock Jabo 15,000 impeller. I might get another video going that talks specifically about impellers, and I'm really interested to know if people want me to do a video just on impellers. Let me know in the comments and I'll talk about this more. But this stock impeller here, when you inject air into it, well, it's not meant for air injection like a needle wheel impeller. When it tries to grip the water that comes in through the intake through the front, it starts to kind of, you know, instead of spinning nice and smooth, it kind of gets a jerkiness to it as it's biting water and having force against it, but then it bites a big gulp of air and has no resistance, and it causes the pump to cavitate. It doesn't work well. And if everyone wants to see, I'll do a comparison video that talks about protein skimmers and their pump impellers as well, and we'll show the difference. I went ahead and I built a custom needle wheel impeller. I didn't do anything that was really any different from what other people have done. I made kind of a sandwich design with a top and bottom plate. Go ahead and show a picture of it right here. Now that you guys seen that picture, I was going to make another one that was more of a traditional needle wheel with just needles sticking up all the way around. Unfortunately, I ran out of acrylic rod. I'm interested to know too, people want to see a DIY video on how I make those impellers. Go ahead and shoot me a comment down below. If enough people want to see a video on it, I'll go ahead and I'll make a video on a DIY video on making needle wheel impellers for this pump. And really, the method I use could pretty much be translated to any kind of pump. The big question was, after I built it, was, is it going to work? Well, let's find out. Take this off feed mode here. Let the pump start ramping up. Now, please remember, this is fresh water and not salt water. You're not going to get the same effect, but we have bubbles. We got a lot of bubbles. I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up. There's a pretty good air suction noise here too. I'll have to build some kind of silencer eventually for this. Let me go ahead and zoom in on this so you guys can see it. Now, this is 12-inch diameter PVC with its bubble plate. It's in fresh water, so you don't really get a great bubbling effect like you will in salt water. Eventually, I'll test it with salt water. I've got a 1/2-inch line being drawn for air. I actually used a PVC fitting that I found at Home Depot for the Venturi on it. This is what I used for the Venturi. It's a 2-inch to 1-inch adapter, but it has this little indent behind it, and it makes a perfect Venturi, just like they sell for a lot of these different skimmers. So all I did was drill a hole on this side and kind of carved it out a little bit with a drill bit so that I could kind of force a male 1/2-inch fitting in there. And when I did that, I just kind of screwed it in a little bit, stuffed it full of PVC glue, and called it a day. As you can see, that's the result there. It's working good. I might play more around with air draw and things, but the next step is going to be to get the bubble chamber installed in the protein skimmer. Once I get that bubble chamber installed, I'll get the holes drilled out here. I can kind of piece the whole thing together, get it installed in the tank, and then the protein skimmer's more or less gonna be pretty close to completion. It's just a matter of doing thorough testing and kind of playing around with where the water level is going to remain in this skimmer. I've also will admit there is some unknowns with this. It's a DIY protein skimmer. One pump might not be enough, but that's okay. There's plenty of room to accommodate a second, or if I really needed to, a third one of these pumps. I think maybe there'll be a need for two, but I think a lot of that's going to kind of depend on how well this makes bubbles in the big tank here and how much skimmate I'm getting, and if I feel that the skimmer's not doing a good enough job. I'm also going to play around with air injection too. Maybe I'll try 3/4 inch to see if I can get even more air injection going in here. That's my update for the 1600 gallon system today, everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed the video today. If you liked it, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see more videos on the 1600 gallon system, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And of course, I really want to hear everybody's comments on the tank system. What do you think about it so far? What do you think about my protein skimmer? Do you think it's going to work or fail, or do you see something that should be changed on it? I know there's a lot of kind of unknowns with it until it actually gets into salt water and can be thoroughly tested. And I really want to hear, if people want to know how I made my DIY needle wheel impellers, well, go ahead and write that down in the comments below. I get enough people that show interest in it, I'll go ahead and film that process, because even though I have one working, I'm somebody that likes to believe in having spare parts. So I'm going to be building a bunch more of them so that I have some backup spares, and maybe even a couple of designs just to see if there's differences between them. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.